Hey everybody, Ramdean and Black with you here in our FN studios. Coming up this weekend, UFC on Big Fox. Valentina Shevchenko taking on Julianna Pena. I would imagine the winner of this fight, based on how they look after the fight, during the fight, will determine the #1 contender at 135 pounds.
So I was sitting with our guy Shaughnessy, who was building the keys to victory for me for this one. And we sat down in advance, and there's a certain amount of logic when you're looking at this fight. You know, the one out in the open field who's had like 500 fights, she's going to win out there. The other one who wants to get in close and get to your back, well, that's better for her. There's some real broad stroke simplicity. And if you're coming forward, I want to hit you and move back, like she did against Holm. And that is going to happen. And one wants to be calm, the other one wants to be a freaking lunatic, because she kind of is. So those are all...
Should she be? Should she be? Based on Shevchenko and the way that she fights, she is going to tag you, she's going to tax you, she's going to frustrate you all night long, and the more angry that you get and recklessly try to pursue her, she's going to continue to play that game, racking up points.
What's the other option? You go and you try to go skill for skill?
Well, not necessarily skill for skill, but you take your time, because she's going to eat you up, and she's going to score you up when it comes to points.
And who's the highest level guy that you sparred with at Bruckman's place? Antonio Carvalho?
Yeah.
So what do you think? Do you think maybe you want to go with Antonio Carvalho and just kind of feel it out and work it out?
No.
Like, that's the level we're dealing with.
It's all dangerous.
But that's the level we're dealing with, is somebody who's good and somebody who's elite of the elite. And so Paul, I gave Paul the overview and said, hey, if you could assemble some of these and we'll work on them. And as he pulled them together, you're looking at it, and there is no comparison. Like, Shevchenko's skills are a 97, and Pena's skills are a 77, with growth and evolution and what she's learned. Maybe they're an 87, but she is getting lit up if it's skill for skill. But if she makes it, and we say this often, well, make it not about that. Make it about hard, or make it filthy, whatever. You got to do that. She cannot stand out there and try to play a smart tactical game. She's got to go in there ravenously, just obsessively getting to this woman's back, and she still may not be able to.
And then what? And then what happens?
She gets killed. She gets beat up badly out in the open field by somebody way better than her. If she wins, it's because she was able to, through being the better woman, wanting it more, whatever that means, being ferocious, being unpredictable, being a little crazy, go and supersede that skill. That can be done. But if you're a better, and you're looking at this one, and it's kind of a pick'em, and it's based on somebody who is elitely skilled and somebody who's really ravenously wants to win, that doesn't feel like a pick'em to me.
Yeah.
But, I mean, go in there and look at the highlights. Look at the moments. Look at the moments against Holly Holm, one of the great strikers in the world. Now, I realize it's a different game. Holly's not trying to get to the body lock and or drag you down and or get to your back. But the game is the same. You've got to move through my fire. And if I'm Shevchenko and I got to play that against Holm, I know I can. The only difference is this opponent of mine is more intense and more aggressive and more, frenzied. But she's dealt with a lot of those in her 15 years of fighting.
And when you look at it, when you look at her experience, Shevchenko's, most of it comes inside of the Thai boxing ring. Does your surroundings, does that make a difference? Do you look at all the different elements that Pena can use to her advantage, saying, okay, this isn't a Thai boxing match. She doesn't have the experience up against the cage that she does being in corners and whatnot. Let's make it about those things.
Yep, I love it. And she can win the fight. And if she's going to win the fight, it is with things like that. And then it's with, as you pull Shevchenko into these more difficult, gritty moments, and hope that she'll break, even though we're pretty sure she won't, when she kind of mentally switches into dealing with that, then crack her. When she's committed, and Chuck Liddell used to, in the broad strokes all game, used to say, hey, when he's thinking about wrestling, I punch him in the face. And that kind of simplicity. It can be done. And I would be thrilled on Monday morning to go, holy crap, because there was a time where, who did Donald Cerrone just take out with that four-piece?
Rick
Story. There was a time where we were watching Rick Story, and he was beating people who on paper were more skilled than him. And he was going in there, and we were like, this may be the moment where you're seeing who is the better man supersede skill. And those moments happen in fighting. And Pena has to make this fight about one of those moments or 25 minutes of those moments. It's a hard fight for her. I'm shocked that people think this fight is so close. But I would, at the same time, I get it, because this woman overachieves always. And a lot of that is her ravenous mentality. And I would love to, if she beats somebody of this skill level, somebody
she deserves her shot.
She deserves her. If you can beat a Holly Holm or a Valentina Shevchenko right now, you can beat anybody. So this fight is great for her in that sense, to go in and just say, your skills are irrelevant to me. It's just, it takes a very special mind and spirit and essence to be able to do that.
And you talk about that space, that Pena has to get through the space, and Shevchenko is clearly going to be firing. However, is Pena going to be affected? Are those punches going to be damaging enough for Pena to stop going through that space?
Well, when Ronda fought the champ, the difference between fighting the champ now and winning those fights before was she, in the earlier fights against Sarah McMahon and Alex and all these fighters, just wanting to close the distance made her close the distance. But the massive improvements in the management of the space between you and in footwork sort of landing with your foot on a landmark and pivoting, creating a landmark to pivot off of, all of these complex footwork, it just changes everything. And just being the one who wants to close the distance may not be enough. Having said that, it can be done, because Tyron Woodley on paper shouldn't have or couldn't have got to Stephen Wonderboy Thompson the way that he did, but he made the improvements. He changed the game. He was able to go beyond some of the challenges, and he could do it. But Ronda couldn't do it against the champ, and if Pena is able to do this against somebody of this skill level, I'll never doubt that woman again, and I will be a fan for life, because to see somebody use literally their spirit and their essence to beat somebody way better than them is incredibly inspiring.
Clearly, it's going to be a hell of a fight at 135 pounds. All the action goes down Saturday night from Denver, Colorado.